I will start it now.
Okay, start it after I say boobs.
No, I'm keeping all of it.
Okay, perfect. I was kind of hoping you would. Hello, and welcome to Dark Alignment Podcast. I am Brittney.
And I am Eruca Rose. Also, Amy. My first name's Amy. You're going to need to know that in a minute.
Very important. I mean, you can probably already know now because you saw the title. And also, you can, if you're on YouTube and you're experiencing the visual component of this podcast, which does exist for those of you who didn't know, we are doing an Amy Winehouse inspired theme look because we are covering Amy Winehouse tonight. This is definitely different than what we normally do because we are a true crime astrology podcast, but this is a little bit of a special thing. This is very much an embodiment of the name of our podcast, which is Dark Alignment. And it's the anniversary of Amy's passing. Not on the day we're recording this, but the release day. So by the time you're hearing this, that is a very, very big deal for pop culture. If you lived, I mean anywhere, like the UK is where she got her start, but became very well known in America and all over the world. So she's very much a household name. We're gonna just
people still remember. It's still kind of fresh on people's minds, even though it's been
several years.
10 years.
It has been 10 years. Like, I mean, I know I knew that.
2011.
It's insane to think about.
It really is.
Where were we in 2011? Let's not think about it.
Junior in high school.
I was much older than that. But anyway, we are a true crime astrology podcast, and you can find us everywhere on social media, on every platform. So follow us, like us, subscribe. Definitely, if you are on Apple Podcast, give us a rating, give us a review. 5 stars would be awesome if we've earned it from you. But follow me on Instagram. I'm at Britt Oakley, and we've got at Eruca Rose.
Yes.
So I guess without further ado, we will just hop in. I feel like we're like going for it tonight.
There's some energy. There's some fire.
It's like the Cancer into Leo season. I feel like that's what's happening.
The drama cusp.
Yeah.
So we're filming.
The drama cusp.
It's very dramatic. Timing. Like, we feel the energies, and then to mix them together, it's like, ugh.
I like it. I'm ready to move into Leo season for sure. So sources for this episode, Wikipedia was a lot of it. Hulu has an amazing documentary. If you haven't watched it, it's called Amy Winehouse, A Final Goodbye. And then there was another one that I am referencing here called The Tragic Story of Amy Winehouse. So several documentaries, plus I was around obviously at the time that she was alive and a huge fan and following a lot of this. So a lot of this was like a fresh memory for you as well. And probably anybody listening, this won't be like an unfamiliar story. So go ahead and get into it. Yes. She was born in London, England, in an area that I don't really know how it works there. You know, like how you say stuff, like the way we say like city states and then United States. Yeah. But like London, England, I thought was a thing, but specifically Gordon Hill and Enfield. Yeah, I've
had to do some research while I pull UK charts. So I'm like, make sure I get this in correctly.
Yeah, so there's a lot of info about the location here that I was like, I don't really know what order you say that in or like how you're
good.
So forgive me if you are in the UK and I screwed that up maybe. But she was born September 14th, 1983. And again, as we said, she passed July 23rd, 2011. And her full name was Amy Jade Winehouse. So
very cool.
I love the middle name. And she was an English singer-songwriter. And she was known for her really like a deep, soulful voice. And she had like an electronic jazz, like 50s bluesy, like throwback kind of vibe going with her music, which was just so unique. She was like a modern throwback to the 60s with her whole sound. But unfortunately, she had so much going on in her personal life and so many very public things that she was struggling with. It kind of overshadowed her incredible talent in a lot of ways, which is very unfortunate, which is, really why we're talking about her right now. But I do want to say, before I go any further, I want to dedicate this episode. Well, you are Amy, and this is an Amy episode.
I already had to throw that out there.
So that's dedication number one. But also, good friend and friend of the podcast, Brittney. I know you love Amy Winehouse, and so definitely doing this for you too.
From Astral Chat.
From the Astral Chat podcast. Yes, we did a crossover episode with them earlier this season, and it was a lot of fun. So, Brittney and Courtney, we love you. Do what?
Check that out.
Yes, check that out. Check that out, please. That was so much fun.
It really was.
We need to do that again sometime. So getting into how Amy grew up in her young life. Is it weird hearing your name like over and over?
A little.
Okay. Because I know I'm going to feel that way when we finally do Britney Spears. And for the record, that's another Britney record.
Miss Spears.
When we cover Britney Spears, I want it to be when this conservatorship is fucking over and we finally free Brittney. So
we've talked about it a long time.
Yeah, and I have had conversations with some of you in our DMs and in my personal DMs about this and being asked, because everybody knows that I love her. So I've been asked like when we're going to do her, and I am waiting until the conservatorship ends for the official statement, and I'm hoping that is very fucking soon. So let's all hope that. So Amy Winehouse grew up with two parents. Their names were Mitch and Janice, which I think are pretty...
Mitch and Janice?
Just like...
Very common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very normal names.
Very 80s common names.
Yeah, but it's kind of like fun. It has a vibe. I don't know anybody named Mitch or Janice currently. But her dad, for his job, he installed window panels, and he also drove a taxi. And then her mom was a pharmacist, so I thought that was really interesting, like how different they were in their careers. But her dad really liked to sing too, and that's probably where she got a lot of her skills going on. But he really loved Frank Sinatra.
Oh.
So he sang a lot of his music, and he like played it in his taxi all the time. Amy had an older brother named Alex, and she was the baby of the family. She was raised in a Jewish family, but she wasn't like ever into it. Like definitely not like the institution of it. And in some interviews, I thought this was really funny. She said she only went to a synagogue once a year on Yom Kippur, which is apparently the holiest day of the Jewish faith.
Oh,
it's like the Day of Atonement. I had to look that up. FYI. I was like,
what is... learning.
Yeah, I was like, what is Yom Kippur? I'm very interested. I don't know a whole lot.
I've heard the word, but I didn't know.
Hopefully I am saying it right. If not, please forgive me again. But it's like she went out of respect, and to me, I feel like that's when like Christians go to church on Easter. I feel like that's probably... that's how I was like equating it to something that I knew more about. But... anyway, she always loved music, even when she was really little. And by the time she was 12, her grandmother encouraged her to start going to a music school. So, like, starting to go to voice lessons, starting to, like, take it more seriously and do her thing. So she went every Saturday. She also learned how to tap dance, which is interesting. I fucking hated tap. But she went to the school for 4 years, and she started her own rap group, which I thought... And... Do you want to guess the name of the rap group?
I cannot guess the name of the rap group.
Sweet and Sour, which is cute. So,
no, I like it.
So yeah, she did that with a close childhood friend, and then she decided to go for full-time vocal training at Sylvia Young Theater School, which I feel like sounds like a really big deal, and it's probably like American equivalent of Juilliard is what I would...
Okay.
That's an assumption entirely based on nothing except an assumption. So she actually applied in secret and got a scholarship, which was pretty cool. And then several years later, she was reportedly expelled for not applying herself and for piercing her nose, but the school denies this, and they say that they wouldn't have expelled her. So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Her dad denies the claims too, so it's probably bullshit. Okay. But it sounds really gossipy and like kind of interesting. I see why that story would have been interesting to people. But.
Right.
But she got her first guitar when she was 14, and that's when she started writing music. So she was also described as being very rebellious. So she started performing in bars at 16.
Dang.
I know. I can't wait to see her chart because I have assumptions.
You have
I feel like with being like really rebellious, maybe she's got some strong Aquarius energy somewhere. I don't know. I'm making assumptions. We'll see.
I'm very curious.
We will see.
I'm ready to see this chart. I'm still working on pulling it up.
Yeah, dates, times, and did you find her birth time by chance?
She does have a birth time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited.
I'm putting latitude and longitude in.
Oh man, so there's some complex things happening right now. So early in her career, when she was 17, she became a featured female vocalist with the National Youth Jazz Orchestra, and that sounds like a big deal. But how she got discovered. So her best friend was another soul singer and sent her demo tape to this record label. And she ended up signing with them when she was 19. And this was interesting. I had to, I looked up some things to understand this. So she was paid £250 a week. And in American money, that is $351.92 per week.
Oh.
So it doesn't sound great. But, you know. And then when she would perform, people would ask, oh, who is that? You know, they were really intrigued by her look and her voice and just everything she was doing. And they would be like, oh, I'm not allowed to say. So she was kept this weird secret. And this other label, really wanted to sign her. And it took them 2 months just to find out her name. So for whatever reason, she was being paid really low. She was getting these kind of obscure gigs. And no one was giving her name out. So it's very interesting. But she signs with this other company called Island. So it's a different record label. All these were British, and I wasn't familiar with them. So it's I don't want to get some of these details mixed up because I'm just not familiar. But when people heard her music, they were obviously very, very into what they were hearing because she was just so different, so unique. And Frank Sinatra was a big musical influence of her after her dad was really listening to a lot of Frank Sinatra. And what's fun is we did a Patreon episode where we did Guess the Signs and we covered Frank Sinatra. Oh yeah, we did talk about him a few weeks ago. So if you're on our Patreon, you can hear our Frank Sinatra talk. It's cool that he kind of came up here. But that influence came through so strong in her sound and her music, and she even named her debut album Frank. And she was killing it in the UK. Wow. Absolutely crushing it there. And she openly said this. I thought it was really fucking funny. This is, again, feels maybe possibly some Aquarius vibes, but maybe even Sagittarius. I don't know. I'm
just so excited.
I'm feeling vibes. But she publicly said that she was only 80% behind the album. She's like, nah, support it 80%.
Nice.
Because the record label overruled her preferences for a lot of the songs and the mixes to be included. But I just love that she told people. I feel like most people would not
want to put that up. She's upfront and honest. I like that.
Yeah, very blunt. And that's how she was described by a lot of people. She was very creative and had a really specific process for when she recorded. So her dad described her as a perfectionist in the studio. She would put her own recordings on a CD and then play it in his taxi, to see how people reacted to it. So she wanted to know how people felt about it before she did it, published it. I just thought that was really cool. She released Back to Black in the UK in 2006, had some of her biggest hits on it, Rehab, You Know I'm No Good, the song Back to Black. We were just listening to it and singing it before we started recording. So producers, including Mark Ronson, described her as being super blunt, especially when she didn't like their work. So she was never shy about sharing how she truly felt about something, which is such a rare quality in a person. And I think that makes her just so special. And it's very funny. And Back to Black was the #1 album in the UK for several weeks. She reached the top 10 in the US charts. Time magazine named Rehab the best song of 2007. We all remember that shit. If you were alive during that time,
oh yeah, that
song was just everywhere. Her career was on fire. She was a really confident performer. She was so strong on stage, and I love watching those early videos of when we were first seeing her. She was just on top of the world. Everything looked so bright for her. And then we started to see the struggles coming through. So it's she just was on such a high and went up so fast, and then the fall and the decline was just so, it was like watching a train derail. It was so hard to watch, but the good times. During the height of her career, she received 5 Grammy Awards. She won Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Best Female Pop Vocal Performance for Rehab, and the Best Pop Vocal Album. She also received a Grammy for Best New Artist, earning her an entry into the 2009 edition of the Guinness Book of World fucking Records for most Grammy Awards won by a British female act.
Wow.
And Back to Black was also nominated for Album of the Year. So it is just huge. Like, that is insane. Most people work their entire life to even be nominated for a Grammy. So to win that many in one night, that is insanity. So, now we're going to move into some less glamorous parts of her life, starting with her relationships. So she had this very public, very messy relationship with her on-again, off-again boyfriend named Blake Fielder Civil.
Okay.
They eventually got married. People say that her relationship with him was her biggest downfall, and you can see that in the behavior, like the paparazzi stuff at this time, and what you would see in like all those like tabloid magazines of the two of them. I mean, it was just awful. Like, the pictures were so bad, and we'll get into that, but geez, I'll never forget this. So Amy admittedly got violent with a female fan and punched her in the face because the woman criticized her for marrying Blake. So she's also like extremely ride or die and very passionate. Like, there's a lot of passion in this relationship. It's very intense. It feels very extreme. So yeah, she actually attacked Blake for trying to calm her down in this incident, and she ended up kneeing him in the crotch. So, you know, there's some like mild assault going on here. So, you know, I know there's not a lot of crime in this story. It's mostly very just dark alignment things.
So she was
getting physical.
Okay. So she had been drinking, right? And then
there's no record of her level of intoxication at this time. This is just her behavior, like her being very volatile and very aggressive.
And so he was trying to...
Basically, a female fan was like, you married a piece of shit, and she's like fucking somebody up and getting in a fight, and then he's trying to pull her off, and she is
making sure I have the whole... Okay.
So I don't know if that had anything to do with alcohol, or if it was more just somebody criticizing her being in that relationship and her being like, fuck you, and attacking them, and then attacking Blake for like stopping her from attacking a fan. So that's a whole situation. Definitely not great, but in an interview she admitted that she would occasionally get violent with him after she had been drinking. So she did say that in an interview, like, yeah, I got violent with him sometimes after had some drinks.
Yeah.
And then it was like shortly after this interview, the pictures that I'm really referencing here, they oh god, so they were like bloody and bruised. I'm talking like they both looked like they had just gotten in a bar fight. Like, it was bad. And they were just like walking down the street in London. Amy claimed that the injuries were self-inflicted, but like who knows? It was really bad. The pictures are really, really awful. And then after that public drama, her parents and her in-laws, they publicly were telling people like, oh, we're so concerned. And that's where there's a lot of weirdness between Amy and her dad, and it played out a lot in the media. Yeah, it was kind of icky. I can't tell if he's kind of malicious or if he was genuinely a concerned parent that just was making it too public. It's really hard to know because you don't know, you know, people's private relationships at all. And she's not here to like, you know, explain it or provide any additional insight. But he and Blake's parents were saying that they thought the couple might commit suicide. So the intensity of the relationship was like their family was even concerned. And Blake was quoted in a British tabloid saying that he introduced Amy to crack cocaine and heroin. So this is getting worse. That's absolutely what they looked like in the pictures. They looked like they had been on a bender and like gotten thrown down a flight of stairs, and like, I mean, it was just very, very rough. And I guess Blake also told Amy's dad that they would cut themselves to ease the pain of the withdrawal.
Wow.
So very fucking intense. Trigger warning. Jesus Christ. I should have said that. So sorry. But yeah, that is so intense and horrible to think about being in that type of situation. So good God.
Wow.
How's the chart looking as you're jotting?
Oh, there's plenty here.
Okay.
Plenty here. Don't worry.
I love it. I love that you're taking notes. I like watching her take notes, or like when she's
I'm trying to take less notes.
Okay.
That's my new... I'm trying another approach today.
Ooh. We're doing a totally different thing today, you guys. I feel like we got into the story like faster than ever, and we're
here we go.
We're flipping it around on y'all. What you think? So, red flag central. Here we go.
Here we go.
All right. Things are, as we can see, we're on a decline. We're on the downhill slope. It's around 2007. She was 25 at the time. And it was the opening night, like kickoff concert for her tour, and it ended super fucking badly. So she was booed off stage. The concert goers were walking out of the arena. There's footage of this, and it is so heartbreaking to watch. She's so fucked up. She's stumbling around. She doesn't really know what's going on. She can't really talk. She definitely can't sing. It's just a total disaster. She gets pissed off at the audience. She starts cussing them out. And after this whole thing happened, her team announced that all performances and public appearances would be canceled for the remainder of the year. And they said that her doctors advised her to take a complete rest. And I would say good decision there. Her concert promoter issued a statement blaming the rigorous schedule involved in her touring and the intense emotional strain that she was under for the decision. So that was the whole reason, according to like PR people. So her dad then, again, he always talked to the media. It did kind of feel like he was like throwing her under the bus all the time, like when it was going on.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't talking to the media, but he sure was. And it's like, why are you doing that, sir? Like, what are your real intentions, I guess? But yeah, her dad is like saying that she had a lot of anxiety before she performed, and like he thought she was trying to take the edge off and went too far, overdid it. Like, oh, if I just have a quick drink, like I'll feel a little bit calmer. And that's common for people with anxiety, like trying to find ways to mask that when you're forced to do social things, and you like it's a self-medicate type thing. For introverts who are performers, it can be very, very tough when they have to like be so on, and if they're anxious, like they're not allowed to be that way. Like you got a job to do. It's your job to get on that stage and deliver. So, and also in that environment, like the backstage environment and like touring environments, like there are a lot of
pressure.
Yeah.
A lot of stresses.
And a lot of drugs and alcohol.
Stressors and a lot of opportunities.
Right. There's access to everything when you're on tour and in that kind of place, and you're famous and people are giving you a lot of things.
Promoting that kind of, like lifestyle too.
Right. Exactly. So
romanticizing it.
Yes. So it's not an ideal place for people who are, that struggle with like the overindulging, and obviously for Amy specifically, addiction. Just not a super conducive environment for making good choices if you have those types of issues. So, like, I get it, but she was also hospitalized around this time for what was reported as an overdose of heroin, ecstasy, cocaine, ketamine, and alcohol. So that's a fucking cocktail. Like,
wow. Really
especially the ketamine. Like, that's very intense. I mean, all of these particular substances together. So it's a fucking lot. So in several different interviews, she admitted to having problems with self-harm, problems with depression, and eating disorders. So she was open, with people. She was open about
I think she
struggles.
Definitely expressed herself.
She was very, like, relatable in that way, because even, like, releasing Rehab was, like, almost like a tongue-in-cheek, like, dark humor sort of thing, because she really was, like, struggling so bad. So to just kind of make light of it in a way that's like her narrative.
Yeah.
And you know, the lyrics of that song, she's very smart in the way that she presents it all. And I love her writing, but
very linguistic.
Yes. And she told a magazine that the drugs were to blame for the hospitalization that night. And she thought that she was going to die that night. Like, she was quoted as saying, "I thought it was over for me then." A spokesman for her also reported that she was in a physician-supervised program where she was channeling her difficulties by writing a lot of the music. Again, you see that in her songs, and in, like, Back to Black was written about Blake and their relationship.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, like, she was absolutely raw in her writing and, like, what she was putting out there and how she was dealing with it. So, you can see that. But still, more bad press kept coming. It was all focused on her downfall. We see this in the fucking media all the time happening to women. Like, they love watching women be successful and then fall from grace. It's very gross.
The entire horrible trope.
So gross. So there was a tabloid that, this is so awful, you guys. Trigger warning again. This is so awful. A British tabloid posted a video of a woman who was allegedly, but very fucking obviously, Amy Winehouse, smoking crack and saying she just took some ecstasy and Valium. And it was just sad. Have you seen that video? I remember seeing it when it happened.
Wow.
And it was her, she was like in a hotel room, and she was just talking candidly about the drugs she was doing, and it showed she was actually hitting a crack pipe. I saw it. Like, it was really fucked up. Like, it just, the fact that it aired and that it got out like that, and that it just really is hard to watch. So at this point, her family is extremely worried because everybody sees this damn video. And her dad moved in with her. And then her record label announced that they would not extend the promotion of her album until she entered a rehab facility for a 2-week treatment. And that is, first of all, that's not enough fucking time. But after this, everyone could see that, like, her efforts of doing that were unsuccessful. Like, you know, like, she would try, but it just was not working for her. She just kept behaving erratically. And
it seems like they were just kind of like, okay, go to rehab. Go do it. Go show that you're trying. Like, I feel like, like you said, 2 weeks is not.
Right. That's not enough time to even form a new habit. That's barely enough time to, like, detox and start to feel a little bit normal again.
And
like,
then for her to, like, go back after that, and then they're like, oh, rehab's not working. It's like, well, you were set up for failure.
Yeah. I mean, I just celebrated my 9-year sobriety anniversary. And one thing I can say about that and about addiction from a personal experience is you have to want it.
Want it bad.
Nobody can say, we want you to do this and we think you need rehab. Like, you can go, but if you're not wanting to be there and you're not there, like, giving it your all because it's truly what you personally want, it will not work. Like, you can't want it for somebody else. Like, it's just not how it works. Unfortunately, I wish it worked that way because then we would have a lot more solutions going on. But anyway, so her disheveled appearance during and after a scheduled club appearance in September 2008, like, more rumors of her relapsing were coming about. So photographers were quoted as saying that she had cuts on her legs and her arms, which, again, we have on record from her husband at the time saying that was a self-soothing.
That's something they did.
So, like, he already kind of, like, exposed what those cuts could likely be. And according to her doctor, though, she had quit using illegal substances. So I think that she just switched over to alcohol instead. And that happens to a lot of people. That actually happened to me in my early 20s. Actually, I was 20 when I was getting clean of hard drugs that I was doing at the time. And then I switched right to alcohol, but I didn't really notice I did that. Because it was so socially acceptable. That was the difference.
It seemed like, okay.
Yeah, like drugs are very bad and they're illegal. But when alcohol is so glorified in our culture, which is another part of the fucking problem.
It is.
It's readily available. I was at an event earlier tonight, and I was the only person not drinking, and I can't tell you how many times I was asked by servers, "Can I get you a glass of wine? Can I get you something to drink?"
Yeah.
And people not knowing I was I could have easily been like, "Yeah, sure." Like
very easily. Yeah.
It's not anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but especially in the type of industry that she was in. Like, it's constantly there. It's constantly available. And it's very easy to go from one substance to another and switch that. So more Blake stuff. He just comes up a whole lot. He ends up going to prison. So there's some more crime for several months for grievous bodily harm with intent because he broke a pub owner's cheek. So
okay.
And the intent of that is this is basically a fancy way of saying he meant to cause a lot of harm to somebody, and he did. Like, he was like, "I'm going to punch you so hard I want to shatter your face." Like, he went into it with that, and like, if they can proving intent is hard, but they apparently did in his case. He just doesn't sound like a great guy, really, is what I'm trying to say at this point.
Picking that up.
And while he's in jail, Amy finds new love. Yes.
Okay.
So he's an aspiring actor named Josh Bowman. And then in early January 2009, Amy was quoted as saying she was in love again and that she didn't need drugs. And that her whole marriage to Blake was based on doing drugs. So she also said, "For the time being, I've forgotten that I'm married." So she's publicly saying, like, I know I'm married, but I really don't acknowledge it right now. I'm kind of not giving a fuck.
That's great.
Again, she's so blunt.
I like how open she is.
Yeah, she doesn't give a fuck. She's just
direct.
Yeah, I can't wait to see where her Mercury is, actually. She's just so forthcoming, very direct with how she feels and what she has to say. But guess what? Guess who's not okay with this? It's Blake. He's super pissed. He's super pissed about this because it's all over the tabloids, so he knows about this in jail. He files for divorce and cites adultery, obviously. Amy did not take this well. So this pair is clearly very healthy. So toxic as hell. But she told the media that she still loved Blake. She wanted him to move into her new house with her, and that was her plan all along. And then she also said, "I won't let him divorce me. He's the male version of me, and we're perfect for each other." So, you know.
Okay.
But the divorce was finalized in July 2009, and Blake got $0 in the settlement. So it was an uncontested divorce, which I find very interesting, considering how...
that is interesting.
But, you know, a lot of times uncontested divorces happen because the one spouse just doesn't even want to hire a lawyer and they don't give a fuck.
Or
and
maybe
they
threatening. Maybe.
I mean, sure. Are you feeling threat vibes?
I don't know.
I feel like it's more of like, because of kind of how he seems to be as a person, I feel like he was kind of just like, fuck it. Like, I just want the divorce. I kind of feel like... I don't know. They were living a very, it feels like a transient lifestyle, but it wasn't. It just feels that way. But anyway, more red flags. This whole thing is just red flags. But in an October 2010 interview, she was talking about her decision to quit doing drugs. And she said, "I literally woke up one day and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore." But once again, alcohol was the replacement. So she was only clean for a few weeks before she started binge drinking, trading one substance for another, which we kind of talked about. She was actually treated for alcohol withdrawal and anxiety around this time, and then she went through some psychological and psychiatric evals. She refused therapy, though. And then throughout her adult life, she continued to be arrested several times for assault and public order offenses. So public order offenses, that's just basically like disorderly conduct. And like, I think it's like noise, or like if you break the noise ordinance, like it falls under this category. Like the type of crimes, like public order offenses are basically shit that pisses people off that you can actually give them a ticket for. So it's like, your music's too loud. Here's your ticket. You've committed public order offense. It's
Gotcha.
Yeah, but yeah, causing a scene in Walmart. If they want to slap you with the charge, that's the one you'll get. So it's again like a very petty crime, but assault is pretty serious. That's not a great charge, and especially with the number of times that she's just very aggressive and kind of like a loose cannon if she's provoked, or not even necessarily somebody would have to directly provoke her if she feels like there's some sort of a threat. Fight or flight, like she's ready to fucking throw down. Which is crazy because she's so tiny. She's like 90 pounds. She's very small, but apparently very scrappy and very aggressive. But while everything in her personal life is continuing to fall apart, her record sales keep rising. She keeps performing, and most of the time without issues. Like, people thought, like, okay, she's making a comeback. Like, she's doing so good. But once she was said to have stormed off stage after starting her concert an hour late, so there were still like these little moments where there'd be like a fit and like a meltdown, and there's little red flags just like kind of popping up. And you can only hide that kind of problem for so long before it becomes really intrusive in your life. So one summer she went back to performing after like a little break. It was at this jazz festival in St. Lucia, and they were having these crazy downpours, just tons of rain and tech problems. And then during her set, she was like wobbling around. She couldn't remember her lyrics. She apologized to the crowd and told them that she was bored. She's like, sorry, I'm bored. Like, I don't want to be here. And then she just ended the set in the middle of a song. So,
wow.
She just is unpredictable, really. They never know who they're hiring. Like, if they're going to get the version of her that's kills it, or if they're going to get the version of her that's like, fuck you, I'm done performing. I'm actually very bored. So, she's still creating new music, too, at this time. And she was learning to play the drums for a new album that she hoped to release. That didn't happen. But she was booed off stage yet again by an audience when she performed in Dubai. She was described by people as tired, distracted, and tipsy during the show. Yeah. And now we're about a month before she died. So we're getting to kind of like peak. Things are really fucking bad. So she started a European tour that was described as a scandal and a disaster because she was too drunk to perform. She was booed off stage again and again. This is a clear pattern now. It was reported that she was unable to remember what city she was in. She didn't know the lyrics of her songs. She didn't know the names of her band members. She didn't know the names of her bodyguards. Like, she was just on another planet, basically. Super fucked up. The local press claimed that she was forced to perform by her bodyguards. They didn't allow her to leave the stage when she tried to. Like, they blocked her. Oh my God. So this is kind of a fucking nightmare where whoever is booking these tours and the management team that is saying, yeah, she needs to go on another tour. Let's keep pushing her on another tour. Let's keep going. Even though she is clearly fucking struggling so bad and does not need to keep touring. Like, this is a clear sign of somebody who needs lots of help. It's so fucking frustrating.
Mental health was not treated the same early 2000s as...
I mean, we're in 2011 here, which is just... God, has it really...
And it wasn't... I mean, I feel like people started talking about it after I got out of high school.
I mean, I feel like people still don't talk about it. If we're being totally honest, it's still...
It's definitely talked about very differently, and you can get a lot of, like, access to things.
I think it's talked about
online, and, like, you know,
It's talked about differently by the right people, and people are, like, our age are starting to embrace it, but if you talk to older generations...
Oh, well, I'm not expecting the people to change.
It's not, it's just kind of like the stigma still very much exists. Like,
in the older generations, yes.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. I think even still people our age, especially where, you know, in the southern part of the United States, and like, you know, there's still just a lot of hesitance. We live in a different type of...
When you think about, like, Brittney Spears' time, when she went crazy, I heard absolutely nothing about mental health about her.
Yeah.
I heard all she lost her mind. She's just crazy. But like now, when you see stars like have a an issue, they're talking about their psychology and their mental health and all of these things. So I think it's the tone, like the way we approach it, is not great, but it's better.
I feel like the media is doing a better job. Yeah. If we're giving anybody credit,
social media online is really pushed that.
Yeah, I think media in general is doing a better job. But one of the things, like, most people didn't know about the Britney Spears conservatorship until very recently, and I've been like screaming about it for 13 years. And I can tell you, over all those years, even a year ago, before things were really, really public with Free Britney, wasn't. The documentary hadn't come out yet, so it wasn't so mainstream to know about it. And people would still go, "Oh, well, she's crazy, though." Like that was
because that's what was ingrained in everybody.
It just drives me nuts. Yeah, that's what is still like what I was still getting, which just tells me people haven't really changed that much.
I think that's what they were taught back then, and it's like a recall. It's like, she lost her mind,
It's so annoying.
And I think it's the same. It's a similar thing, and then the media like makes it worse, and it's a cycle. Yeah. And they have a reaction, and then the media makes it worse, and then
In this case for Amy Winehouse, it was just so tragic because you can just watch her. Yeah. Derailing so fucking hard, and nobody is really doing anything to support her. I mean, like if nothing else, they should have just not had her working. Like this isn't a healthy person. And if I were like having an event, I wouldn't be booking an act that I knew was like very volatile. But then it shows you where people's hearts are, because that's going to sell a lot of tickets either way, right? It's such a fucked up world, and it's a harsh industry. But now we're going to get into her death. So So her cause of death is listed as alcohol poisoning. So that's the official cause. She died 3 days after her last public performance, which is so sad. Oh my God, that's today. Today would have been the last day.
Wow.
Holy shit, I got chills. Whoa. Okay.
Wow.
Whoa. So, she was pronounced dead at the scene when paramedics arrived. The 911 call is really sad. If you ever heard the 911 call about her death being reported. They were like, there's a young woman, she's deceased, blah, blah. And then they keep going and asking questions. And finally, the female caller is like, it's Amy Winehouse. Like,
oh my gosh.
Like, they just kept asking all these questions and like, let me just tell you what's really happening. So she's in the 27 Club, dying at 27, along with so many other very famous musicians like Janis Joplin and Kurt Cobain. There's just a long, long list of celebrities who went out this way and also struggled with addiction. So it's a thing. So I wanted to end on a lighter note, so we're going to do a couple fun facts about Amy Winehouse now to kind of lift our moods before we go into her chart that I can't fucking wait to see. So in total, she had 14 known tattoos, including one that said Daddy's Girl on her left arm for her father. And then she had a pinup girl named Cynthia on her right arm, and that was in memory of her grandmother. Oh. So the one who pushed her to do music and was her big supporter. I thought that was so sweet. And people who knew her well all said that she was hilarious and obviously blunt. She was always so honest about herself, about her behavior, about her life, about the goods, the bads, exactly what she fucking thought. She was probably one of the most realist people. Most realist? Realist?
Mostest realist.
Fucking dope-ass people who ever lived. And it's such a tragedy. So that is the basic rundown of Amy Winehouse and her very dark path. And are we ready to chart? I can't say let's chart this bitch because she was not a bitch. Let's chart this badass. Let's chart this badass. We don't say that much on this podcast. We usually hate the people we're charting.
Gotta sign back in. I need to update my password. My manifestation is something else now.
Oh, because you've achieved it?
Kind of.
Okay.
Well, yes, but also, who's to say it couldn't be achieved more?
Well, I
hit the peak of it? Probably not, because I haven't actually changed the password.
So there's still potential. Mm-hmm. But also, please strongly consider such passwords as butt stuff 9/11. That might also be a viable choice for your password. If you've not seen our TikTok about this, you don't know what we're talking about. Or just go follow us on TikTok and go watch all our content. So, yes. Please continue.
Okay. All right. So I have my computer set up. I have Amy Jade Winehouse's chart up. Let's see. Where do I want to start? Obviously, Sun, Moon, Rising, right? For everyone who just
start with the basics.
There's a lot of people I know that are just craving the whole time, like, what's Sun, Moon, Rising? Tell me the Sun, Moon, Rising.
I have to know. I get excited to know those. I don't know. Whatever. It's like what we always want to know about somebody when we first meet them. So it's like introduction, Sun, Moon, Rising.
All right. You had a guess with Sagittarius, right?
I said Sagittarius, Aquarius, but I know that's not her sun, but I feel like somewhere strong.
Okay. All right. So she is a Gemini rising.
Okay.
Virgo sun sign. And her moon is on the cusp of Sagittarius in Capricorn.
Okay.
So Capricorn moon, Virgo sun, Gemini rising.
Virgo weirdly makes sense for her.
Oh yeah, she's like that earth goddess vibe.
Yeah, and also with like how specific she was with how she recorded and stuff. Like they're like, oh, that makes, whoa, I'm kind of surprised by that.
And then conjunct her sun is Mercury in retrograde.
Whoa.
And so she's got a lot of that like very directness right there. She has a strong influence from Mercury, not only from that conjunction, but also with Mercury being the ruler of Gemini, her rising sign. And then there's that kind of blunt, like it is how it is kind of factor with the moon being in Capricorn, like right on the cusp, right in the beginning of Capricorn. And it also has that kind of like laissez-faire Sagittarius like thing to it. So it's like, I mean, it is what it is, and like I'm gonna go with it. Like, and then she's able to project that very directly, very easily, very candidly. I did pull up. This is something I don't normally pull up for charts, but I pulled up some Arabic parts because I got on a whole thing earlier with Arabic parts, and I thought they would be interesting for this. I had a feeling, and they are very interesting. I also pulled the Arabic parts on you and mine charts, just to see, like, compare.
Cool.
Look at some other examples.
I do see new things on here.
Oh, there's a ton of new things.
Before. Wow. Okay.
So, I will be mentioning some of those, and if you guys are interested in those, I can continue doing them as I feel like they're interesting.
Yeah, let us know if you like it.
I already use a lot of asteroids. I get really fascinated with this stuff. So, okay, another strong part of her identity is this, is her 4th house situation and her 10th house, which is your 10th house is your midheaven. Your MC, your 4th house is your IC, the opposite. Okay. So her 4th house cusp is in Leo. Her midheaven is in Aquarius.
Ha! There it is. There it is.
And so her home life, which is the 4th house, and how kind of like maternal energy as well, and but the home. It is in Leo, so she probably had more of a vibrant, expressive household that she would. I mean, for her preference, she would like to have that probably, especially with the planets that she has here. She has Venus stationary and Mars. I'm not sure who will and won't know what stationary means. Should I explain that?
Explain it.
Okay, so when a planet goes in retrograde, it's direct before that. It's direct when it's moving normally. And then right before it goes retrograde, which is when it looks like it appears to be moving backwards. Before it appears to be moving backwards, there's this little transitional point, which usually like as for like Mercury, it's like a day, or like it depends on the speed of the planet. But there's this little transition moment where it looks like they're still, like they're stationary. And so and this was either right before or after a retrograde, because you have direct, stationary, retrograde, stationary, direct, and then you'd continue back around.
Okay.
Let me see. I can check if anyone's curious listening. Okay, so it was coming out of a retrograde. So she has Venus in the 4th house in Leo, as well as Mars. And these two conjunct are so passionate.
Yeah.
And it makes Venus a little bit more stubborn, like very situated with where it is. It's not really focused on moving forward or back and stationary. It's like, this is where I'm at. And then it also brings this really nice mixture of her masculine and feminine side, and feeling really comfortable with that.
I can see that in
it's
her
coming
too.
from the same energy, that Leo, and it's more masculine and coming from Leo, but 4th house is more feminine. So you really have a good mixture of all of this, and she has the Arabic part of identity here as well. So this is a big part of her identity here. Then
okay, I'm liking the Arabic stuff. I'm already liking it. So my vote is yes.
The Arabic part that everyone will probably know is the part of fortune, lot of fortune. Have you heard that?
No.
Part of fortune? No?
This is new to me. So
I'm trying to think, is there any others? I feel like most people know part of fortune. And hers is in the 10th house, which I'm about to talk about, in Pisces. And so there is like that ethereal, dreamy, she did find success in that like artistic flow of life, which is what the part of fortune would be showing. Okay. And it is in her 10th house, which is success, career, goals, what she becomes known for, things like that. Also in her 10th house is Ceres retrograde in Aquarius and Lilith in Aquarius. So having these conjunct, they're within 5 degrees of each other. Having these conjunct makes it where she has this internalized sense of a foundation for love mixed in with self-liberation, sexuality, self-empowerment, that kind of those Lilith vibes.
Yeah.
And in Aquarius, like not afraid to be different. I'm going to do my own thing, kind of new age minded, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of self-liberation through her career. And you see she becomes known for kind of amping herself up, but also we see that she has a lot of this retrograde Ceres energy, where it's like this slower, like she's kind of behind on like self-love. She's kind of behind on having healthy foundation for love, and all that. This has become all like very public,
right,
in midheaven.
It's so public.
It can also show, as things transit over this placement on her chart, you could see probably ebbs and flows of things coming up with her relationship, and then things where she feels very self-assured in her career, and then things where she feels very, like a lot of back and forth, a lot of topics related to that. Let's see. There are some aspects off of her midheaven that were interesting. There's a square over to this area in her 6th house with Saturn, which I want to talk about. Do I want to talk about it now?
Feel it out. And
well, there's also some trines to her ascendant. We'll talk about that first. Trines to her ascendant in Gemini. And what's really interesting about her ascendant is that she has her North Node as her first thing on her chart here, right after her ascendant. Her ascendant is at 17 degrees Gemini, and then her North Node is at 20 degrees, like right after, only 3 degrees away, less than 3 degrees. And then So as people know, probably from listening, your North Node is where you're headed in life. It's your life path, the direction you're taking. It's usually also this energy where you're just really drawn to that. You don't want to. You're just kind of hyper focused. It's like let's say I'm like really into turtles, and it's like I'm always gonna like turtles more. I'm always gonna want to learn more about turtles. It's
Seeking
like
turtles.
Yeah, so it'd be like yeah, okay, your North Node's in turtles.
That's a great way to just explain it. My North Node's in turtles.
But you need a foundation to learn about turtles, right? You need a foundation. You need a way to access this turtle information, this turtle energy.
You're gonna go to watery places.
Well, you're gonna have to have, you have to start from somewhere. So your South Node would be your past, where you're coming from. So you have the South Node as the beginning stages in life, early life, even past lives. And then you're moving forward to your North Node, turtles, to your direction in life, your life path. It's usually something just very exciting to you, what you really want at a core level. It might not be something that you're conscious of, especially in the first half of your life. And this even carries over probably to like further lives, like karmically down the line. So having this be in her first house makes it where she is destined to be, her life path is to be more of her own identity. It's a very karmic placement to have it in the first house. The first house is also representative of your karmic lessons in this life. So these are things that you're not allowed to not face. Where if you think about the house system, the first house is when it's the moment you are born. So it's like it's representative of the head, the face.
Okay.
So you're literally not allowed to not face the things in your first house.
Oh.
It's always right there in your face. So that people also, another way I explain the first house is it's kind of this veil between you and the rest of the world. It's really this outer layer, most outer layer of yourself.
Right.
Unless you want to talk about like maybe not most outer layer, but it's the outer layer between you have your inner self, your moon, and you have all of these other planets going on as well. You have your identity, yourself, your ego, your being as the sun, and then your rising would be the next layer. So everything's filtered through that rising placement.
Got it. I love how you explain that. I mean, like I know these things, but I just love the way you're.
Yeah, it shows your approach to the world. It shows the mask you wear. Like people, I'm trying to just kind of going over stuff now.
Come on, it's like public perception of you outside of like midheaven, but it's like
so anything that's in that first house is going to color that that perspective you have on life. So having the North Node there again, very focused on what she wants to do. I'm going where I'm going, and it's so close to the first house. It's probably something that's pretty easy for her to follow, along with Vesta being conjunct to the North Node in the first house as well at 23 degrees. This shows that her soul is really committed, like devoted to this same energy of her rising sign, of her North Node, which makes it even more direct and focused. And then something that we'll definitely talk more about later, she also has the Arabic part of addiction right there. And also at 23 degrees. I put the pill.
Oh my gosh. So you picked these symbols?
Some of them, but not all of them. I had to work with what my program already has for symbols. But some of them are like universal, like this one. And anyways.
Right.
So.
How interesting. Okay. I'm liking the new things I see all over this chart. Really am.
I thought you would have a good time with it.
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. It is good times.
Okay. Let's see. So since we talked about her North Node is really just her becoming more herself and more her identity and embracing herself. She's not allowed to not be herself, where her South Node placement is really fascinating mixed with this because it shows more signs of addiction, and it also shows not wanting to be her not wanting to connect with her inner self, not wanting to connect with her feelings. Whatever on your south node, you usually go through a time where you reject it. Kind of like how as you grow up, as you become a teenager, you reject your childhood, your past, your parents. You want to like go into the newness, your new
break
life.
Free from this.
It's kind of like that. And then when you get a little older, you learn it's like you gotta learn to use your past to move yourself forward. So that's usually at least a time period where and this is so strong with people who have placements like these, which I think you have.
I was going to say, I see the moon. I know I have this moon south. We call it my moon south node issue when we talk about it.
We do.
But as soon as you pointed this out, I was like, I see a symbol there.
We've had this come up on the podcast several times.
Why am I always like so confident?
You do tend to pick people you resonate with, and I think it's funny when like
that is
have similar like placements as you.
It's so
so yeah, Moon conjunct South Node. Also, Neptune here conjunct both of them as well, making it more fanciful, fantasy oriented, fantastical.
That's the word I want to say, but then it doesn't feel right.
Yeah. It's a lot. Neptune's very ethereal. It's very dreamy. It's very illusionary. It can show, and the moon is too. Moon is also representative of illusions and feelings and how things kind of ebb and flow with the tides. And having this be something that you struggle with on your south node throughout your life, I feel like she wasn't quite at the point where she had conquered this. I don't think that this was something that she got over before she passed, because this is, again, Neptune is also tied to addictions. Having both of these on the south node is also tied to addictions. There's, I think that it was definitely still something she was struggling with, and it's very apparent with how she passed.
Oh, that's so sad.
And then there were hints at possible, suicide undertones with her.
Lots of self-harm, lots of very destructive behavior, lots of near-death experiences.
And so it's almost this borderline of where can you, in a way, consider overdoing things because of your addictions, and self-harm and all that other stuff coming into play already. Is this in a way suicide?
Right.
And you can see this reflected on the chart with some more Arabic parts that I thought, which is what kind of like triggered this for me, was there are two, I found a third as well, Arabic parts for suicide. And they're all in very key points on her chart. So she has Arabic part of suicide in her 12th house, conjunct the Arabic part of death. Conjunct Chiron, retrograde, in the 12th house in Gemini, which is the same sign as her ascendant. There, she also has these conjunct the North Node, conjunct the addiction, Arabic part, conjunct Vesta. So it ties in with this whole arc of her life with the addictions from the South Node and the North Node, and her being herself. And it's a big indicator of suicide on natal charts is our placements like these North Node, ascendant, death situations. So I think there are some kind of, it's colored by that theme a little, but it doesn't, it's hard to say like exactly. I would say that since we see the addictions so much stronger, I think it's like more so that like it wasn't, I don't think it was super intentional, but I don't think it wasn't like something that wasn't already in her mind. I think it was already in her mind, but it wasn't like I'm gonna die tonight,
Right. No, I totally get that. I've been in that place, that exact place you're describing. I used to tell my mom not to plan on me living past 25 because I knew that I was living my life so hard, and I didn't give a shit. I didn't want to keep going. I was doing things and doing my life, but
Pisces, Neptune.
Gosh. Yeah. So I relate so hard to like those themes of just being so deep in addiction that you don't really fucking care if you die. Like, it's kind of like, that would be better than what's happening, but I'm going to keep doing the things that I like in this life while I'm here, but I feel like I'm not going to be here that long, and I'm just going to go balls to the wall. Like, I feel like that is kind of the vibe.
Yeah, that is the vibe. And with Sagittarius on the South Node, that's also part of that vibe. She does have that in the 7th house, which relates to her relationships, partnerships. You see this a lot with, I definitely Blake, a little bit Josh too, but I think in a different tone. I think she had, in a way, matured a little bit, and so the energy played a little different, but not that that was a perfect relationship either. Yeah. But we see that more again of those illusions and difficulty with the past and kind of holding her back and being a big struggle. You also see squares, which one I thought was really fascinating. There are some squares from the 7th house and 8th house. Let's see, over to her sun and Mercury, which is those relationships in conflict with herself, with her existence, conflict with her thoughts, her words, her speech, her communication, her thinking. So already you can kind of see that with her partner holding her back from her being her full self, like in small ways and big ways.
Yeah, that.
Even literally with him like holding her back from like wanting to attack somebody, maybe you could argue like he was doing the right thing, but it is a conflict with what she wanted to do in that moment.
Yeah.
That's really what the square is showing.
Do you think it falls into any of like the addiction stuff where he was a big contributor to like her?
Oh yeah, that's the bigger.
Okay,
that's the bigger example.
Okay, that's kind of where my brain went, but I wasn't sure if that's
what I said. Small, you can see it on small levels and big, and that's usually how like, patterns and energy and astrology all works. Is you see it come up like red flags. You see it come up. These energies come up in cycles in small ways first, usually, and then they amp up, and then sometimes it's like the frog with the boiling pot of water thing. Like if you don't notice it getting hotter,
you'll just
soon enough, you all of a sudden it's boiling. And
I was thinking that I knew that analogy, or like it's not like an analogy. It's like a story. It's like a tale. I don't know.
I can't think of the word, but yeah,
it's a thing. It's a saying. It's a thing.
There's a word for that kind of saying.
Yeah, I can't remember it either. But I was pretty sure I knew how it was going to go, and yeah, I did. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard it with lobsters. Like I don't know. I don't know if I've heard it with
lobsters would make more sense. But it's like jumping out of the pot. You want to jump out of the pot as soon as you start to feel it heat up, kind of thing.
Okay, I think you're right. It is. I bet lobsters was a totally different thing. It's like a male versus female lobster thing.
Oh.
I'll tell you later. It's really fucking cool, I'll tell you. Yeah. Anyway, continue. Okay. Sorry. Lobsters and frogs derailed me.
Just go straight to the poor lobsters that Red Lobster in the tank, and I hate it. Vegan brain here.
I was going to say, for those who don't know, she's a vegan, so.
Okay. But for real, though, it's sad.
They look alive after they're cooked. I don't eat seafood at all. I'm also a Pisces, so maybe that's a part of it. I don't know.
Compassion. You have, let's see, some of this aggressive part of her personality. I guess I'll touch on that. We have already that conjunction in Leo that I mentioned, with the passion and aggression and identity. And then she has a trine from that placement over to Pholus in Aries.
Oh, okay. She has a lot of fire.
So again, extra fire, extra. And then she has is also up in Sagittarius, not only Neptune on her south node, which can already kind of make her unpredictable and spontaneous and fiery. She also has Jupiter and Uranus there conjunct each other within a degree. And Jupiter, wherever that is on the chart, it expands that part of your life, that energy in your life. It also shows where you have growth and luck and opportunity. And Uranus is very individualistic. It's kind of in a lightning bolt type energy. It does have an influence on electricity, literally. But your uniqueness, it kind of shows this like innovative, individualistic. Am I using the same words over and over? Part of yourself, and having them conjunct each other just makes it so much more intensified.
Yeah.
So you see this with her being unpredictable and spontaneous, but also having a lot of luck and like still getting opportunities and having growth through that trait.
You still see it. It's crazy.
Where other people would be like, you didn't finish the show, you didn't show up for the show, like you're done, like your career's over. No, not for her.
Wow, that's crazy that even that shows up on here. Like,
it does show up as a conflict to her part of fortune, but there's more trines on it than one of those trines is over to another Arabic part of fame, which is also in Aries. Also conjunct an Arabic part of accidents. I
love these Arabic parts. Everybody has to be loving it along with me. They're so good.
I hope so. And so this Arabic part can represent like accidents and surgery and like major incidents, things like that. And having those two conjunct each other, all fame and an accident, is very telling. This also is quintile to her North Node situation with the addiction and the suicide and death and all of that. Let's see, the other, I forgot to mention this earlier, but the other Arabic part for suicide is in her 6th house, which I wanted to come back to. So there were earlier in the story, there were people saying that maybe it was because of her schedule, her regular schedule and things like that. When you look at the 6th house, when you look at the 6th house, you do look at routines and day-to-day activities and schedules, and also being of service and being of caring for things and caring for yourself and all of that, tending to the seeds that you're planting, physically, metaphorically. So you can harvest them. Virgo is harvesting time. So her 6th house cusp is in Libra, the end of Libra, and her first thing in there is Pluto, which shows really harsh, intense energy, also transformative, death-oriented energy. It's conjunct Saturn and her vertex and the other Arabic part for suicide.
Wow.
So you see a lot of stress coming from that part of her life, really, and it comes into the beginning of Scorpio. Those placements do, or you see a lot of that. Like she does end up in scorpionic energy situations a lot, where I think that she's bringing her own energy to them. It's not that she is scorpionic, but her vertex being there, so she's being thrown into them, and her life structure is around them with Saturn being there. Also, I think it shows with how people said she was so like determined, and how when you have Saturn in Scorpio, it makes you very determined to like get to the depths of things and do a good job. And but you're doing it like out of passion usually. It's not usually like a sense of obligation or any of that. It's like you do when you're passionate about it. Saturn in Scorpio is really gonna like you
want it to be your best. Like you want to put your because you care, and
you're gonna have a really good sense of detail, like an intuitive sense of detail with this, and that's where the hard work comes in with Saturn a lot of times, and also limitation and stress and things like that. Discipline, that's what I was looking for.
Yes.
But having it conjunct Pluto and vertex and suicide is very in Scorpio and Libra. It's very intense.
Feels very unforgiving. The whole thing feels
It is. That's a good word for it.
That's the first word that came into my mind, was like, that's E. Yeah.
Man. Let me see my notes.
Yeah, you've been just flowing, and it's awesome, and I love it. I'm just really loving the extras that we've got tonight.
Oh, I was going to say, I was curious about her her childhood more.
Yeah.
We heard about her dad, which I also see as the squares on her sun and the Saturn being in stressful placement. You see the squares from the sun is square, her 7th house, her south node, her Neptune, and her moon. And Vesta and addiction and north node and ascendant.
So like with
and that's it.
One thing that's so interesting about her childhood is this, like, she didn't seem to be super close with her mom. If you think about, like, the tattoos, even, like, she's got daddy's girl, she's got grandma there.
Right.
Mom's this pharmacist, and kind of feels like she wasn't really close.
Okay.
Like, I did. And then if you think, like, sometimes in Jewish families, like, I know just from actually another podcast that I love, that she grew up Jewish and is Jewish, but talks a lot about what the family dynamic is like, and has a lot of strain with her mom. Something, I don't know if that's a common dynamic, but it's interesting.
It is really interesting with her moon being in Capricorn, where her mom was kind of like the foundation, like the stable. She had probably a more stable view of her mom, with her being a pharmacist,
right? Versus
and like a career person, with it being like a Capricorn career goals. It's the 10th sign. So I think that makes a lot of sense, where she felt like her mom was like goal-oriented, structured, stable career. And then, but kind of distanced from her because it's on the south node, and she probably has a lot of illusions about her involved with her mom because of that Neptune there as well. On the other side of her moon, there is another conjunction with Pallas. It moved into the 3rd house, the 8th house. My bad. I have Roman numerals up. I was gonna say lines, my brain messed up. And so you have this again, like that wisdom factor on the other side of the moon, on the Capricorn side. But all her issues with the addiction stuff are on the Sagittarius side, which is really fascinating.
Wow.
So you almost see like a divide with like that maternal lunar energy, where we can be really, really stable and really discerning, but also we have like illusions, and we're losing our mind.
Wow.
And a lot of stress coming from that Sagittarius side. That's where all the squares are. That's very. The square, she has a square off of Pallas, but it's over to the fame, stardom, and the tragic accident of alcohol poisoning.
Yeah.
In that aggressive Aries energy. So there's more. Obviously, that was a conflict with her. There's probably a part of her that like deep down knew better, and probably might even have been like her mom's voice, like, we can't be doing this, like, it's not gonna help you get where you want to be in life. It's not good for, I think she probably had that voice going on in her head. There's that conflict between those two things, where like the fame and the was not ultimately good for her, and I think part of her knew that, obviously.
Yeah.
She's not dumb.
And
but
she's not dishonest.
Addicted, yeah.
She's
very, very upfront.
I feel like she was probably like that internally too, with like how she dealt with stuff, is like probably very self-aware, but not like it was gonna change what she was doing. It was just like, I know I'm doing this, but I'm gonna keep fucking doing it. This is what I'm doing. Like
this is what we're doing.
Again, how I feel. That's what we're doing.
Let's see. Yeah, okay, so then the marriage.
I'm so excited. This is what I've been kind of waiting to see, like, just because that was so toxic, and I want to see
we see a lot of it already, because I did pull up their charts too, because her 7th house is where she has the south node, Neptune, and moon.
Oh, that's right.
And that is your house of partnerships, relationships. things like that. And then there's trines. Let's see. I gotta make sure I have my lines correct. Okay, so in the 12th house, where she already has suicide, death, and Chiron retrograde, in the earlier part of her 12th house is her Juno, which shows commitments and marriages. Conjunct to that, there is another Arabic part that is about like fate, tragic accidents with fate. Let me pull up what I wrote.
Interesting and specific of like a.
Let me see.
I'm so interested in all of this new things.
Tragedy, that's the word I was looking for. Fatality, fate, tragedy. And so she has that conjunct tragedy. She also has it conjunct the Arabic part for divorce.
Whoa!
And then she has it conjunct a little bit further off the Arabic part for confidence. So I'm wondering if part of that marriage like gave her, even though it was so awful and up and down, like if it gave her this weird sense of confidence, this kind of like offshoot of confidence because of I don't know,
some sort of empowerment or fulfillment she was getting from
there's
know.
Something there. It's all in Taurus. It's all in Taurus.
Like if the passion fuels,
maybe feeling like you're desired and that crazy. She said that she felt like they were
the same person
and meant for each other and things like that. So it's interesting that shows how that shows up on the chart. But having it, you also see there's a back and forth between her routine and day-to-day lifestyle with everything in the opposite house with Saturn and Pluto and things in the 6th house. And her having this marriage with him and her tragedy that she endured in the divorce. Like there was probably a lot of time conflict I could see, like not being able to keep with the routines and her falling into these bouts of her subconscious issues and things like that, and it being directly tied to the marriage and the divorce and the tragedy that kind of instigated. Let's see, there was another thing here. We also see the Arabic parts for love and Cancer in the 2nd house. And another suicide indicator.
What? Like that?
And so you literally see like this, kind of dramatic Cancer love energy, and like it being, we cut ourselves together. Yeah, we get emo together. Literally.
That's so intense.
It's in the 2nd house. It shows a lot of her values are around like love. It seems like. It's like, we love each other, so.
This is clearly amazing.
And then you see that again reflected, where I say like these strong people with strong personalities. A lot. You see this pretty often in charts for everyone. Really, it's like you'll see a trait mentioned, like referenced in one part of the chart, and it'll come up again in another part, and another part. So like you also see this with the Venus conjunct Mars conjunct identity and Leo in the 4th house. I was meaning to ask where she died again. I can't remember.
I believe it was in her home. Like I'm pretty sure.
Because I was gonna guess
she was discovered by, it was a female. I don't know if it was a member of her staff, or I don't know if it was somebody like from. I actually don't know who it was specifically that discovered her, but I'm pretty sure she was found just in her home.
Wow.
Which, that happens to a lot of alcoholics. That is, they're typically not the ones you're going to see at the bar when you're like super, super serious binge drinker. That oftentimes is happening when you're home alone and by yourself. And it's cheaper to just go buy a bottle. Not that she needed to worry about things being cheap, but it's more about like, being able to just drink to pass out, essentially. Like if you're out in public somewhere, there's like a sense, it's almost like a sense of accountability. I know that whenever I got to a point, like whenever I was living alone, my drinking was kind of at its worst at that point, because I didn't have accountability. It's so different from like knowing you're in public, knowing you gotta like get yourself home somehow, even if you're a person who like drinks to a blackout state. it's still like knowing that somehow I've got to get home before you, like while you're still there. But when you're already home, it's kind of like,
I'm here.
I would wake up and weird things would have happened in my home. And obviously I was the only one there and I had to have been the one who did it. But I was just like, I don't remember this. Like, it's wild. Like, just happened.
The one time I blacked out, I remember waking up and I had put my hair up because I'd been like getting sick. And I woke up and I was like, why is my hair up? Like, I don't remember doing that. And like, all the little things like that were to change. I can't imagine it being bigger than that.
The time I lost all my hair, that was awful. Literally lost all of my hair. Major chemical burns and bleach on my head overnight.
Oh, you did tell me that.
That one was bad. And then the specific one I was talking about, somehow, like, I went to sit down, I turned on my TV, and I was, like, watching TV the next morning, like, kind of feeling a little hungover, and I noticed that my entertainment center no longer has doors on it, but they're not taken off the hinges, they're broken in half.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, the fuck? And then I noticed they were propped up on the side.
Yeah,
so I had, like, apparently fucked some shit up and broken them. Nobody was there except me, so I clearly did it, and then propped them up on the side, like, I'll deal with this later. No recollection. So mine was stuff that was very
I assumed it would be much more than that.
But those are just two quick examples of like drinking at home versus like when I would go out. It's you have to be,
and you have other people saying things to you and like kind of like even
if I went out by myself with just alone, which I did sometimes, it was
it's different.
It's different because there is that sense of like, okay, I gotta make sure I'm okay enough to get home at least.
There's other people around, like
right. So I really feel like that is where her final moments happened. Probably home alone and just binge drinking by herself. And when people have anxiety, a lot of times, which is really common for alcoholics, is to also have, because alcohol is a depressant, it's going to make all of those existing, like if there are mental health issues with some of those things, it's going to make them worse, for certain. And then reaching to alcohol to like calm the anxiety, which her dad had mentioned maybe she was doing before shows, but also to go to sleep happens to be another thing, like too anxious to sleep, so drinking more or having to wake up in the middle of the night and drink more to like stay asleep.
All of that again is really reflected with this square with her moon conjunction and the sun conjunction, where you see the dad involved with the sun, but also her sense of self and her emotions. I also would think off of this there was a lot of conflict between her mother and father.
Probably.
But within herself, you see this this can be a major tell of anxiety and depression. Moon conjunct South Node conjunct Neptune square, Sun conjunct Mercury, also conjunct the Arabic part for happiness. So literally just this like huge conflict, and then to have her dad be the one speaking out on it, because she has the sun in the 5th house, which is expressive, in Virgo, which it can be really like nitpicky, so it's kind of like you could see like the father energy in with this chart orientation, where he is expressing and being really vocal with Mercury there. On like how he thinks things should be done and what she is doing, and like detailing.
Oh, that must have been so horrible, especially since she was a self-proclaimed daddy's girl, to see that and see it like on the media, and like I feel like that.
But dad was a happier energy if you try to ignore the square, which I think people tend to try to do, like when they have this because you still feel happy. She still feels happiness, and the the mental stimulation with Mercury there, and the talking and stuff with her dad with that, and but it's also just really strong conflict with her inner self and her mom issues. So it's like a strong thing, and so you kind of would go back and forth, like when you're really vibing in your solar energy, then you would really want to like, my moon and my lunar energy is just such a frustration right now, it's such an issue. And then when you're feeling your lunar self, like your solar self, it's really hard to, you have to kind of find a way to appease both sides where they don't feel so stressed to fight each other.
Wow.
I have a similar thing on my chart.
Yeah. It feels very intentional. Like you'd have to be very intentional to balance that out and deal with it.
It's something. It can be a major thing for anxiety because it's like it's two core parts of yourself fighting all the time. So you kind of like make them both happy as much as you can and chill. Let's see. So then I was talking about her dad. Yeah. Also, dad showing up through Saturn, because that's another place that people look at fathers. Having to be in the house of Virgo, sixth house, and having that harsh Pluto energy on it, and the Scorpio harsh energy. It's more of similar things.
Again, they're just showing up in multiple places, like you were saying. Like the same themes are showing up again and again.
It's very nice that way. Yeah. All right, I was going to talk more about. I'm like, we're getting scattered. I was going to talk about Josh and Blake's charts. I pulled their charts up, not on my system, but on a general system, just so I could see some of their plane placements. So first, Blake.
He's the one I'm very interested. Gosh.
So this is very telling right away. We have Blake's South Node in Capricorn conjunct his moon in Capricorn, and so he has a similar type of mommy issue. He also has Sagittarius, Neptune and Sagittarius, same placement. Uranus in same placement. Those are slow moving planets, so we could expect that they're born close together. Yeah. But he also has Lilith there, so it's like he has this like competitive, like self-liberating sexuality to this area of life, and that was kind of like exciting for her in a way and kind of liberating, even though it was really toxic. That kind of conjunction would tend to be toxic. He has his sun placement in Aries, right where her Pholus is, with her Pholus issues, and it's also on her 12th house cusp. It's in the 12th house. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. I can't see the degree of the sun on this, can I? I think it is in the 12th house, but that's also 12th house is where she has Juno for marriage and all her 12th house issues, which I listed off earlier. Divorce and the confidence and Chiron and death and suicide and tragedy and yes. So and then do we have a rising for him? No, we don't.
No birth time.
Time. His Mars was in Libra, Saturn was in Libra, Pluto in Libra. Obviously, his Venus was in Pisces, where her part of fortune was, which is kind of fascinating. So he was probably really admired her success. He probably valued that a lot.
To be quite honest, I don't know what the fuck he even did. It was never like he was not much of a focus of really anything, and I didn't do a specific deep dive on him and his life or where he is now.
He did have Jupiter in Scorpio conjunct her Saturn 6th house stuff, so he benefited from her day-to-day lifestyle and her discipline that she had.
Wow.
Then let's see, we can look over at. You want to look over
her
at
little
Josh?
Her little fling / like breath of fresh air at the time kind of feels like her.
I really wanted to see Josh's chart as well because I like seeing like development through relationships. It's always a super fascinating thing for me. So his sun was conjunct his North Node, which is similar to her North Node conjunct ascendant. So I can see this already being like a more motivational, sunshiny vibe for them.
Okay.
And he has all this in Pisces, which is where her part of fortune is. It feels like a more successful energy for her. It's more of a dreamy, flowy, emotionally compassionate energy. He has his moon in Virgo conjunct her sun and Mercury. So you could see long-term some issues probably because it would activate that major square on her chart, especially since she hadn't dealt with a lot of those issues or kind of, she hadn't made her peace with those energies in her life, the conflict.
Right.
So it might have caused, it could also have been very healing in a way, but moon square moon is not typically something you want to see, especially when his Mars, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune are all conjunct where her South Node issue is with the moon. And so you see, like, there's some really uplifting traits to this dynamic between them, but it's not ultimately, I don't think it was something that was built to last. He does have Venus and Jupiter at the tail end of Aries in the 12th house, which, so it ties in with the divorce. It's conjunct the divorce. It's conjunct the marriage. You can kind of see that. That's like interaction.
Crazy. I love it.
Like literally Venus got activated right around there. He has his Lilith in Leo, where she has her Venus and Mars, and so it was very passionate. You can see it's very passionate, very sexual and liberating energy there.
I mean, she legit was like, I forgot I'm married. Like, she's just like doing whatever the fuck. Like, she's all swept up by this energy.
And he had Mercury where her midheaven is, and her Lilith. So again, like more of this like success, liberating, good energy. So I think there's long-term conflict, but I mean, it obviously didn't get to that point.
Right. But it felt like a nice little lift for her at the time when
I think it was definitely a good lift, and I think that she was on the right track of like progressing through learning through relationships. I think when you have so much in the 7th house, you do learn a lot through relationships. It's just because you're going to be you have so much energy like focused there. I don't know. You can see that she had made progress from her past choice of a partner.
Okay.
So it wasn't the perfect match, but it was much better than the previous.
Step in the right direction.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. She was on the right track. She was making...
Yeah, this was a better choice. It might not have been the perfect one forever, but it was a step up for her. And I think she could have continued to make better choices, especially if she had been able to like go to therapy, like something real, really actually helpful for her.
Yeah, she found a treatment or a program that she was interested in and wanted it, and it was working well. Like, that would have been ideal to see. I wish we could have seen that for her. I wish we could have seen her continue to create music and get better and get healthy and like.
Me too.
We all were like cheering her on too. I just hate it.
I know.
It's so sad.
I do want to look at rough death chart really fast too.
Okay. I wondered if we were going to look at death chart, but we totally have to.
We're pulling up stuff.
I mean, it's
just doing stuff.
Yeah, like it's.
Let's see, July 23rd, 2011. Okay.
What day of the week was that? Was that a Friday?
Saturday.
Close.
All
right.
She was born on a Wednesday.
Okay.
She was also born around a quarter moon, and she died around a quarter moon, about the same distance actually.
All right. Well, that is interesting.
But the opposite end of a quarter moon, it would have been new moon. It would have been waxing when she was born and waning when she died. The moon was conjunct her Juno and divorce and the tragedy placement along with Jupiter was also right there, really like blowing that up. We have, let's see, Pluto entering her 8th house, which is the house of death, and that is the planet of death and transformation. We have Chiron square Chiron over her it's in her midheaven along with Neptune and Vesta. So we see her again. The story, you can see this reflected in the storyline of what her reputation around her death was about. Is like she was doing what she loved. She was really devoted to this, but she also had these addictions and issues and like delusions, and she had this trauma. And she she was so successful. But like it's like this It's all encompassed right there in the transit chart of her in that 10th house.
Wow.
That's what people were talking about, what she became known for with her death.
She became known for it with her life, too. But like you said, still successful.
Yeah. Because, you don't hear, like, just that, oh, she was this person that drank herself to death. You hear about, oh, it was such a... Yeah.
You don't only hear about the stories.
You hear about all of this.
Had bad performances, or, like, you hear also about all the Grammys and the Guinness Book thing. And, like, it's just... You hear
how amazing she was.
Wild. Oh, it's just so sad. And what a loss,
It really is such a loss.
Huge fucking loss.
Oh my gosh. She's got Mars and the South Node over her North Node in the first house on her death chart. So her past and future and the current past and future had flipped exactly when she died. And Mars was there making it actionable, making it something that came into the material world physically. You also see some like passion energy behind that too. And it's right over that addiction spot, more so than any of the suicide placements. So again, that like solidifies what I was saying, we were talking about earlier. There's a lot I could say on this. I think we should wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah, really fascinating chart. I recommend you guys pull up these charts on your own.
Well, this has been a very fun, kind of different episode than what we typically do. Like, we're typically doing killers, murder. We're doing like serious hardcore crimes. This is our first like kind of petty crime and just very tragic life story that we're talking about. And when we eventually do Brittney Spears, it will be similar, where it will be not petty crimes by any means. It's like fucking it's more of like total corruption in that sense versus our usual like really intense violent crime. So I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of a different feel. Let us know what you think. If you want more episodes like this, or if you want us to go back to our normal, because we will give you, horrific murder all day long. There's plenty of it out there. So we're gonna get back to that regular format next week.
That was also part of what we talked about when we started the podcast. Was like we want to have it open to do different types of similar things that are interesting, just as interesting.
Yes, that was a big part of why we thought Dark Alignment. Actually, you guys voted on that name, but it was one of the things that we liked about it when it was set.
We wanted to be open enough to include other things, and I was also thinking at the time paranormal stories, which I don't know how I'd really do.
Right.
But if you guys want to try, we could try one. But
we could try one. I love paranormal.
We have not tried so far.
Yeah, but we're open to trying, whatever you guys want to hear. Like, that's what we want. That's the content we want to give you. We want to give you stuff you want to hear. So we love suggestions. You can interact with us on social media. Again, like Instagram. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on Twitter. We're everywhere. You can join our Patreon for special access to just totally different content. We do a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, we do. And it also helps support the podcast. Like, we were able to buy a new microphone.
Yes.
I'm hoping the audio is better on this one. You guys can let me know.
And then also, we'll figure out the perfect setting for our voices eventually too. Like, we'll get it refined. Yes. But thank you guys so much for being here and for listening, whether it's your first time or your loyal, keep coming back listener. Like, we love all of you. Thank you for everything. And R.I.P. Amy Winehouse. You are loved and missed, and we're such a special person. I recommend everybody, listen to her records on vinyl. Like, actually get vinyl records and do it. I have actually Brittney, who this episode is dedicated to, gave me an Amy Winehouse record. Wow. And it stays in my record player a lot of the time. And I do change my records, but it's one that I go back to again and again just because it's just lovely. So take care of yourselves, love yourselves, and we'll fucking see you next time. So chart all the bitches in your life as always. Goodbye. Farewell.